An exciting day for the Miami Hurricanes, an exciting 2 weeks of recruiting. We got Eric Bossi here, the National Basketball Director for 24/7 Sports, to break it all down, what it means for Miami basketball. We're going to go through each commitment, again, these last 2 weeks, and getting Jalil today. Eric, just your overall thoughts with what Miami's been able to do with this recruiting class coming off their first Final Four appearance.
It's what you hope to see, right? Not only did they have the Final Four appearance last year, but they're knocking on the doorstep the year before. And they always say that the recruiting starts to follow after you have that kind of success. And certainly we're seeing that now with, all culminating in getting Jalil Bethea today, a top 10 player.
With Jalil, let's stay on that. The big news there with Miami getting him going head to head, obviously with his finalists, KU and Villanova, high profile programs. Just what does that say about Miami as a program? Their coaching staff, obviously, the ties with DJ Irving, team final. Miami's had a lot of history. I know Jim Larinaga or Coach Irving were there watching them all summer with that EYBL circuit. But just what does it say about their staff and kind of how big is this for Miami?
One, it's huge. I think we all recognize that. It's anyone can see that. You don't have to be a recruiting analyst or follow Miami particularly close to understand why it's a big deal to land a top 10 player, especially when you're trying to build on and sustain the success that you've had the last few years. But it's big on a lot of fronts. One, I think Jim Larinaga and Miami, they've always been known as a place that can identify some under the radar talent and really develop guys. So now, and they've also got some big time guys. It's not too long ago that they got Lonnie Walker, who was McDonald's All-American. So it's not like it's out of the ordinary to see them land a high level guy. But, with everything they've got going, it sets a stamp that, we got a guy who was supposed to be able to recruit the Philadelphia area, the Mid-Atlantic area. DJ Irving is clearly doing that. It shows that Jim Larinaga still appeals to recruits. It also shows they've got a really fun style of play that is catching on. And that plays a large role in this. Guys think that they can get in there and that they can not only develop for the next level, but rock out while they're there. And I think they're seeing that with the current team. And you get that all together and you get what's going on now with Miami recruiting.
Yeah, a couple of great points. With Isaiah Wong, obviously the success that he's had at the guards, they've had other good guards in that area. You touched on Lonnie. Everything has to play into it. Team final, Miami's gotten another guy. You touched on Lonnie. They got Davon Reed, Jaquan Newton, highly regarded guys too out of that program. Essentially, why is he a top 10 player? What do you like about his game? And I know he's gone up in the rankings too a little bit. Right now, number 7 overall. According to 24/7 Sports, number 2 shooting guard. Just essentially what makes him a good player.
When you look at prospects, you're always looking for someone who is ascending, right? Someone who's rising, because there's a lot of guys that develop reputations really young, at the beginning of their high school careers, that kind of maybe plateau or in a little bit of early bloomers. Jalil is very much still on the rise and very much, to me, a guy that is just starting to scratch the potential of what he is and who he can be as a player. He made his bones early on as a slim jump shooter with deep range, and he could still do that. His jump shot is still going to be his calling card. But in the last year, we've seen him grow a little bit. He's pushing 6'4" now. We've seen him get significantly more athletic. Athleticism was actually a major question mark with this game this time a year ago. And we've also seen him really develop his ball skills. Now, I'm not sure I'm ready to trust him as a full-time point guard or anything like that, but he's definitely a more than capable playmaker for others, and is more importantly to me, because he's such a great scorer, he's really developed his ability to set himself up off the dribble for shots. And he's able to do so without having to dance with the ball and completely stop the rest of the offense around him. And that's really key to me in his rise up the rankings.
And just as EYBL stats, they clearly stand out. 10th in scoring, about 19 a game almost. But their shooting efficiency, how impressive is that? He's shooting 49%, 42 from 3, and 84 from free throw. Those numbers, obviously, just looking at stats and watching him play a little bit, but just what stands out to you about his offensive efficiency and, essentially how will that translate to the next level?
I think it translates well. And a key in this is with that team final team, he plays with 2 other really good guards. You've got Rob Wright, who's headed to Baylor, and you've got Ahmad Noel, who's headed to UConn. So he's able to get some really good looks and stuff like that. But I think people underrate how important it is to know how to play with other good players when you make that transition from high school to college, because he's been able to stand out and get his numbers while also playing around other great players. So he knows how to do that without just being a shot jacker or a ball stopper or anything like that. So when he gets to Miami and he's playing alongside a Nigel Pack or something like that, he's going to have already played with other guys who can get theirs and know how to still find his within the continuity of an offense. And I think that's really big for him moving on. And it's a big part of why he's so efficient is he picks his spots, he knows his strengths, and he doesn't play away from them.
Just over the years of covering basketball, high school, basketball in general, just what are some of the keys that, highly regarded guy coming out of high school, a lot of attention, but just continuing to take steps. You touched on it earlier about his progress as a player, but maybe some keys for him when he gets to college to, continue to be a successful player, an impact player at the collegiate level.
First and foremost, it's strength. He's got to get stronger. He's pretty lean, does not have a lot of muscle just yet. Quick, can move. So I think he's got a frame that can carry more muscle and stuff. But, he needs to make really good friends with everybody in the Miami strength and conditioning program, and he needs to live there. And I think that's part of why he's headed down to Miami is I think getting him away from home and to a place where he could really lock in and focus was really important to his family. And I know people don't think of Miami as your typical lock in and focus type place because, South Beach, all the glitz and glamour and stuff like that. But their guys are known for being workers down there. And I think that stood out. So getting down there around that culture, getting locked into the weight room, and then just, continuing to improve his decision-making, especially off the dribble when he's trying to make decisions for others. I think sometimes he's so hell-bent to try and prove that he's also a playmaker along with being a scorer, that he'll really force the issue at times and kind of sort of, the old proverbial go for the grand slam when a single or a bunt will do just fine. So as he learns those things and gets the strength, I think you'll really be able to see him show his full self.
It's interesting. You talked about the glitz and glamour, maybe the outside attention or what people expect Miami. But yeah, the campus, the basketball, the practice facility really nestled away there on campus. To me, it's one of the reasons why I think a lot of NBA players come back or go down to Miami at to work out there. And this isn't a football thing where it's a lot of former players. This is players that played everywhere around the country, no ties to Miami, no ties to the Heat. And they have great runs there. And I think it's because of that kind of that isolated feeling of where the campus is. Obviously, Miami being an attractive city for a lot of people to travel to. Anyways, Austin Swartz, let's move it on here. You talk about a guy that had been rising, from the spring to where he's at now, and a little bit different from a Miami perspective, but Jalil, that was a guy that they targeted early on in the recruiting process, whereas Austin got that offer in May. The numbers kept piling up and being an impressive prospect. Can you talk about his journey there out of North Carolina, also in the EYBL with how he's kind of progressed as a player?
Yeah, so we saw him when he was in the summer of 2022, when he was playing 16U and some 17U on the Under Armour circuit, and he was an impressive player. He had some skill about him. He had some feel for the game. Wasn't in bad shape, but was still, maturing physically. Didn't quite have his athleticism, hadn't started to, change his body over to more of a man's body, more of an athlete's body. But he started to do that, and I think it's just getting to see a guy play in the older age group a lot more helps. Like, I don't think it was an EYBL thing versus a Under Armour thing, anything like that. I think it was just getting more opportunity against guys, and also just turning into, we thought this guy was kind of a jack of all trades guy, skilled guy, but it turns out he's a straight up gunslinger scorer. That dude, he knows what he wants to do when he walks in the gym. He thinks he's in range as soon as he crosses half court. And he plays with a supreme confidence that has really allowed him to rise and upgrade his profile. Obviously, you saw Miami get involved and make him a priority quickly, and other programs did the same, and for good reason.
Yeah, he starts out April, 29 points right out the gate, and kind of just continued from there. Finished third in the EYBL and scoring 21 points a game. Another guy, you look at the efficiency, he shoots three, he kind of does it all. What do you like about his offensive game? And kind of, I know you touched on it there, essentially, just a natural score. What do you think of his offensive game? If you could expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of guys who know what they are and don't try and pretend that there's something different. And it's okay if you're a scorer, go be a scorer, right? So that guy wants the ball. He thinks every shot is a good shot. he's not. I've got a category of guys I call feels like leather guys, where their only qualification for a good shot is something that feels like leather in their hands. Now he's not quite in the realm of feels like leather, but he's up there. He just that supreme confidence, and I love it. He plays at his pace, which I think a lot of young players struggle to do. He doesn't get sped up. He knows how to get to his spots. He knows how to use his body to shield off defenders and play through contact just as much as something that he's learned from a trainer in a drill, with some dribble crossover or something like that. And he's just getting better, and he's continuing to get in, to change his body and add a little bit more athleticism. Now, I'd like to see as much dedication on the defensive end as he's got on the offensive end, but he's not terrible on that end by any means. He's just, he is what he is, man. It's what you see is what you get. The guy's out there to get buckets.
And he's certainly another highly regarded guy. You got him number 9 shooting guard, top 50 player overall, 4-star guy out of North Carolina there. As I mentioned, had a good junior season there for Keenan. But with him and maybe how they're going to work together, him and Jalil, just kind of their progress as players. They're coming in similar positions, maybe kind of how you see them. They did play against each other back in April. Just kind of how do you see them two kind of moving together throughout their careers, and how they'll be able to kind of learn off of each other in addition to competing for playing time?
I think they'll be fine, because I think they kind of serve different roles. While at their heart, they're both scorers. I think Jalil is one who can handle the ball a little bit more and is going to be a little bit more of an off the dribble creator, whereas Austin's probably going to be running off a few more screens and pin downs and stuff like that. I think Jalil's probably a little bit more electric in transition and guy who's going to really push the tempo, whereas Austin does his best work in the half court, which I think is a good way to play off of each other. I don't know if fire and ice is the right way to put it, but you get, hot and cold, something that they definitely have different styles about them, even though the results are kind of similar. And I think Miami, they've proven that they've got a pretty wide open offense, and they're good with several guards being out there. And, they run a lot of continuity that gets wide open shots for guys. And I would expect that to continue with these two as they progress. Jalil may be to the point where he might be a legitimate one and done prospect by the time he gets on campus, whereas Austin's going to be there for a few more years, but I don't see any issues with them playing together. And I think that what they do well complements each other's games.
And Miami also added, again, just kind of keeping this 2-week thing going. They also added 6'7" wing and Isaiah Johnson out of Minnesota, Totino Gray, state champion. I kind of read your report on him, kind of an intriguing wing, possible small ball forward. Just what do you think of his game? Kind of a two-way guy, maybe what he can do defensively also.
Yeah, so Isaiah's a guy that isn't nearly as well known as these other guys. Really jumped on the scene late. We'd seen him before, but I would say this time last year he was probably trending more as a mid-major power forward type. But he's really expanded his game. He's not much of a shooter from deep yet, but his mid-range shot looks okay. The real thing that stands out to me is he's just got kind of a nose for the ball and being in the right place, whether that be getting deflections defensively, getting an offensive rebound, maybe saving a ball from out of bounds to steal a possession. He just kind of seems to be in motion. He's not huge, but he's not little either in terms of, like, if you see the kid, he's got a good sturdy base. He's already naturally wiry, strong. I think when he gets into a weight room, he's going to go from 200 to 215 pounds of muscle really, really fast. And I like these versatile guys. Basketball, especially the college level, really every level, is getting faster. It's getting more about guys who can play multiple positions. And I think he's just fine sliding in as that small ball 4 for now, while he continues to upgrade those wing skills, most importantly, getting consistency with that jump shot.
Eric, when you touched on it earlier at the very beginning, talking about just Miami being able to take advantage of the Final Four and their success of late, I'm curious your thoughts on just overall, just getting high school prospects that highly regarded there. Miami's obviously gotten success with the transfer, but kind of mixing this back in. And I know it wasn't too many years ago they got, Lonnie and Chris Likes and Dewan and Bruce and whatnot, that good run, their 2-year run. But maybe just getting this influx of young talent back in the program, something to build on for the future. Your thoughts on that and kind of mixing in with transfers. So just the whole philosophy with building a roster.
Yeah, everyone's got a different philosophy right now. Some coaches want to go old and stay old and are just going to live in the portal. I think we'll certainly see some cases of success, but I just think it's hard when you're bringing in 10 or 11 new guys every year to have any continuity within your program, to establish any type of culture. You need guys who've been there for a while, that are battle tested, that've been through the fires, that can pull a guy aside when they feel coach is getting on them and explain to them why it's going to better him down the road. So I'm a big proponent of a nice mix of high school guys to develop and the transfer portal. And that seems to be the route that Miami's going down. So, selfishly, and in terms of how I would do things, from my living room, I really like what they're doing. And I think we're going to see that those teams that have a really nice mixture of high-end high school talent, not only just one and done talent, but guys that you can develop to be good 2-3 year starters, with then using the transfer portal to plug holes in places where maybe you might have a younger guy who you think is going to be good down the road, but he's just not quite ready. Then you use that transfer portal to plug in that immediate ready to go guy for a year while still developing the other guy behind him and not running him off.
Excellent insight. Your time is very valuable. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about Miami basketball. It's certainly an exciting time for Hurricanes fans. So thank you.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me on. I'd be glad to join in anytime.